Good evening to all of you. Today, we're going to talk about episode number 16 from Surah Aali-Imran. And we start with verse 151, which says, "We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve, because they associated with Allah, that for which He had set no authority. Their refuge will be the fire, and wretched is the residence of the wrongdoers." The truth here is about the reason for the revelation. When the fighting at Uhud ended, the polytheists returned, and Abu Sufyan took them back to Mecca. They went back from Uhud to Mecca. On the way, they said, "We finished them off. There are only a few left." Meaning, those who are on the verge of death, the wounded, the broken, those who ran away, those who are hiding. Why don't we go back and finish them off? You get it? Let's finish off the ones who are left, especially the wounded. Let's finish them off. And the ones who ran away too. Let's hunt down the ones who are dying as well. Let's completely wipe them out. All of this, you see, was so they could totally eliminate the Muslims. So anyway, when they discussed it and decided to go back, God cast fear into their hearts, so they just kept going on to Mecca. That's the first point, the reason for the revelation. The second point is, He says, we will cast. We will cast, meaning God. Then He goes back and says something, using the present pronoun, like we will cast, we will drink, we will eat, we will strike, we will write, we will read, and so on, right? Then at the end of the verse, He says what He has not sent down. He sends down. There's a difference between the noon and the ya. A nu is a present pronoun. The ya is a third person pronoun. You get what I mean? So actually, this has come up before, but I didn't want to focus on it. But when it came up again, I thought, let me focus on it a bit so you can help me understand this. So, at the beginning of the verse, God is talking about Himself. We will meet God. And at the end, He says, what He has not sent down, also referring to God. Just like what happened in verse 140 of Aali-Imran itself. We're at verse 151. So that's about 11 verses apart. What does it say? It says, "And those days we alternate, yes. We alternate them among the people so that He may know." So we alternate, that's us. And so that He may know, that's Him, meaning God. That's the point. A present first person pronoun at the beginning, a third person pronoun at the end. In verses 151 and 140. So honestly, I couldn't understand this part, to be honest. The third point. What does it say? It says, what He has not sent down. But He and down to Him. Who is it referring to? On horror. Unless terror is brought down by a sultan. Okay, fine. If it's fear. I mean, if it's to Him. If the pronoun Him into Him refers to fear. Okay, so if it's what He has not sent down authority to it, does that mean authority will be sent down to fear? I mean, I understand when it says, you will not pass except with authority, like for the heavens and all that. That was knowledge. That was authority. What kind of knowledge? So the authority sent down to fear. Would that be angel or devil, jinn or prophet? We want to understand who is the authority sent down to it. If that's the case, if it is, if the pronoun actually refers to fear, I mean, because I couldn't find that at all. Honestly, I didn't find that interpretation among any of the scholars. To be fair, among those I researched, it might exist with others, that's fine. And then, there's one more thing, a final point. It says what? He has not sent down authority to it. So, Ma'lam here is a conditional phrase, like saying, if you don't finish your work, I won't pay you. That's clear. So here, if no authority has been set down for it, means exactly that. If no authority has been set down for it. Let me read you the other verse. We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve because they associated with Allah, that for which He has not sent down any authority. I'm not sure. 152. And Allah certainly fulfilled His promise to you when you were defeating them by His permission. until you lost courage and disputed about the matter, and disobeyed after he had shown you what you love. Some of you desire the worldly life, and some of you desire the hereafter. Then he turned you away from them to test you, but he has already forgiven you, and Allah is full of grace to the believers. All right. The reason for the revelation is also when the Muslims returned to Medina. All right. So, as we said, Abu Sufyan took his people and headed to Mecca. The Muslims gathered their wounded and went back to where? Where? Were they in the city? Where did these two groups meet? To fight at Uhud? One group went this way, and the other went that way, exactly. So when the Muslims returned, wounded, exhausted, broken, and all that, so they asked each other, how were we defeated? When the Prophet promised us victory in the first place? So this was revealed, to tell them what we just talked about. Exactly. So, I'll tell you two reasons for the revelation, or rather, two opinions about the reasons for the revelation. The first one is the one I just mentioned, that they were blaming each other. How could it be that the Prophet promised us victory and we were defeated? So the verse was revealed to them. The second opinion says that when they returned to Medina, they also asked each other, how could we be defeated when God promised us victory? So the verse was revealed. One time, they blamed each other and said, how could the Prophet promise us victory and we end up defeated? That's why it was revealed. And the second opinion says, how could we be defeated when God promised us victory? So the verse was revealed. Exactly. Actually, the first opinion, the one where they said, how could we be defeated when the Prophet is among us? That was from Al-Qurtubi. And the one where they said, how could we be defeated when God promised us victory? That was from Al-Baghawi. Great. That's a really good point. So what was the reason for the defeat? What was the reason for the defeat at Uhud? Try to focus with me on this point because it's a really important one. Al-Bara says that he was one of the archers stationed on top of Mount Uhud, and he and a group of archers were there because the Prophet appointed a leader over them, a commander or the head of the archers battalion. Who did he put in charge of them? Abdullah ibn Jubair. I was one of them. All right. Anyway, the important thing is the Prophet told him, do not leave your position under any circumstances, even if we are defeated, even if birds snatch us away. That's clear and straightforward. You didn't come at all. The war hasn't even started yet. It became clear that Abu Sufyan and his people, the polytheists, had set up a trick for the Muslims. So what was the trick? They brought along some women wearing anklets, walking with them and all that. The point is, they lifted up their clothes to show their legs, and you could see the anklets on them. So the guys up above, as soon as the battle started, and they saw that things were going well, and there were women, in the middle of the fight. I mean, the infidels had some pretty women with them and all that. They said, the spoils, and left their positions. So Al-Bara, Abdullah ibn Jubair, told him, guys, don't betray the Prophet's orders, just like he said. But they didn't listen and rushed off for what? The women wearing anklets. They left their posts for them. So what happened? The enemies came around from the other side, attacked them, killed them, and defeated them in the Battle of Uhud. So the issue of women was actually the main reason for what? For the defeat? Exactly. So here, the defeat happened for this reason, because they abandoned their positions, even though the Prophet had insisted they not leave them and all that. Who is saying this right here? Who is telling the story that I'm recounting now? It's Ibn Kathir, quoting from al-Bukhari this time. So it's not just Ibn Kathir as a historian on his own. No, he's quoting it directly from al-Bukhari himself, that the women tempted the group on top of the mountain, so they left their positions, and as a result, the defeat happened. This is the main point behind the defeat at Uhud. Exactly. Now, the next point, what does he say? The truth is, he fulfilled his promise to you by his permission, showed you what you desired, then turned you away to test you and forgave you. Are you paying attention? All of this is in the third person in the verse. Who is talking about God in the third person like this? I mean, all these actions use the third person pronoun. He fulfilled his promise to you. He forgave you. All these words I just mentioned, he turned you away. He showed you. By his permission, are you following? So, who is it that's talking about God in the third person here? That was the question. Now, moving on to the next point. What does he actually say? He says, to test you. This whole issue of testing, I've talked about it before. When it comes to testing, there are only two possibilities. There's no third option. Either God already knows the outcome of the test, in which case, there's no reason for him to test, because he already knows the result. Why would he test in the first place? Testing is only necessary when you don't know. And the second possibility is that God doesn't know the outcome of the test, but ignorance is impossible for God. So honestly, this whole matter of he tests you really needs a new interpretation. I genuinely don't understand it, to be honest. Okay, verse 13 says, as you were climbing up, not looking back at anyone, and the messenger was calling you from behind, so he rewarded you with distress upon distress, so that you would not grieve over what you missed or what befell you. And God is all aware of what you do. What's going on here? The reason this verse was revealed is that when the polytheists defeated the Muslims at Uhud, some of the Muslims ran away. I mean, some of them fled to the city. They just took off running as fast as they could to Medina. And some of them climbed up the mountain to a place called the Rock, or something like that. Anyway, in that situation, the Prophet found that they had scattered and run away, and he couldn't find any of them at all. He called out to them, O servants of Allah! O servants of Allah! Where are you going, leaving me behind? You get what I mean? He was calling out, O servants of Allah! O servants of Allah! In the end, he was calling out to them while he was wounded and broken. His incisor was broken, his face was cut, his eyebrow and his cheek were bleeding. He was bleeding, and he almost died at Uhud, while they were running away from him. So what's the reality here? It's that he was the last one among you, calling out to you, and you weren't turning back or paying attention. You didn't care about anyone, not the Prophet, not anyone else. Everyone was just running for their own life, trying to save their own skin, to put it simply, till the verse was revealed, as you were climbing up and not looking back. This means that you were fleeing without paying any attention to the Prophet's call, O servants of Allah, O servants of Allah, and you left him alone while he was calling out to you. So now the verse comes down to describe exactly what happened in reality. That's it. All right. That's who's saying this. But who is it? Al-Tabari. The second point is that Ubay ibn Khalaf, while he was in Mecca, swore that he would kill the Prophet Muhammad. So when they met at Uhud, when he found out that the Prophet Muhammad was there, he said to him, Look, Muhammad, it's either you or me, one of us is going to kill the other. All right, fine. Anyway, that was Ubay ibn Khalaf. So either you kill me or I kill you, Muhammad. So Musab ibn Umair stepped in between the Prophet and Ubay ibn Khalaf. So his own son killed him. Anyway, our guy Ubay was wearing, protective gear. He had iron to protect his head, his face, his arms, and his body. So the important thing is, the Prophet, took advantage of a spot on Ubay ibn Khalaf's body that wasn't protected by iron, grabbed his spear, and stabbed him. Ubay ibn Khalaf fell to the ground. He collapsed like a bull, as the historians or scholars describe it. His friends came and carried him away. The important thing is that after that blow, he kept bleeding, and was sick and all that until he died. He didn't die right away, but he lingered from the effects of the wound until he eventually died. All right. So who is it that's telling this story? It's said that Ubay ibn Khalaf came to the Prophet and said, "It's either you kill or be killed." And Yusuf ibn Umar intervened between them. But then he killed Yusuf, so the Prophet struck him with a spear, and he died from his wounds. Who is saying this? So, who is it that Ibn Kathir is quoting here? He is quoting from Urwa ibn al-Zubair, number 154. Then, after the distress, he sent down upon you a sense of security, drowsiness overtaking a group of you. But another group was preoccupied only with themselves, thinking of God in ways that were not right, thoughts from the time of ignorance. They said, "Do we have any say in the matter?" Say, all matters belong entirely to God. They hide within themselves what they do not reveal to you. They say, if we had any say in the matter, we wouldn't have been killed here. Say, even if you had been in your homes, those for whom death was decreed would have gone out to their places of death. This was so that God could test what is in your chests and purify what is in your hearts. And God knows well what is within the hearts. Al-Rahaway, narrated from Abdullah ibn al-Zubair, who said, I was with the Prophet on the day of Uhud. Abdullah ibn al-Zubair is saying, I was with the Prophet on the day of Uhud, and fear became very intense for us. We were all scared and terrified, all of us. So God said, sleep upon us. God sent us sleep, and we fell asleep. All right. So I heard Mu'atib ibn Kashir, and it was as if I was dreaming. Abdullah ibn al-Zubair says, we were afraid. We slept, and then I heard Mu'atib ibn Kashir as if I was dreaming. I heard him say, if we had any say in the matter, we wouldn't have been killed here. All right. Abdullah heard that sentence from Mu'atib very clearly. So pay attention here. He memorized it from him. Keep in mind, to memorize something, you have to be awake. So he heard it while he was half asleep, between sleep and wakefulness, as if he was dreaming. And then he memorized it. Right? Then the verse was revealed. The verse I just recited, all of verse 144. That's all. Now, who is saying this? Who is saying this? Al-Rahaway narrated from Abdullah ibn al-Zubair that he said, I heard Mu'atib ibn Kashir, and I was dreaming while he was speaking, so I memorized it, and then the verse was revealed. Who is saying this? The one who is saying this. Jalal al-Din al-Suyuti, in Asbab al-Nuzul, The Reasons for Revelation, page 75. Is that clear? Exactly. Okay. Here's the question. Is it acceptable? Did God agree with what Mu'atib said and reveal a verse about it? Because previously, God agreed with Umar ibn al-Khattab in some verses, as we mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, and I'm not going to repeat them again, because we don't have enough time. So, did God agree with him? Did Mu'atib reveal Quran to God? That's the question, because Abdullah ibn al-Zubair memorized it from him, and then it was revealed, just as he said. All right. Actually, you know what? While I was reading, I found that some scholars say Mu'atib ibn Kashir was a hypocrite, if he really was Mu'atib. But he attended 27 battles with the Prophet, so how could he be a hypocrite? That's number one. Number two, Mu'atib didn't actually say anything in the first place. It was Abdullah ibn al-Zubair who said, I heard Mu'atib say, and Abdullah ibn al-Zubair is the Prophet's nephew by marriage. Keep in mind, Abdullah ibn al-Zubair is the son of Asma bin Abi Bakr, and the Prophet was married to Aisha bin Abi Bakr. So he would never lie about him. He would never make something up about the Prophet. If Mu'atib is the one being quoted by Abdullah ibn al-Zubair, if it were a hypocrite, we could say he was making things up about the Prophet. But this is Abdullah ibn al-Zubair, the person closest to the Prophet. He's the one saying it. That's the point. What? Okay. So he led? I mean, the Prophet was his uncle by marriage. He was Abdullah's uncle-in-law, and Abdullah is the one telling this story. Just so things are clear, okay? Even Ibn Hisham says that Mu'atib ibn Kasher was from Banu Umayyah and not one of the hypocrites. He also says that the scholars confirmed to him that Mu'tib was not a hypocrite and that he participated in all the battles with the Prophet. So that's the story? Even if he were a hypocrite, the person quoting him would never be a real hypocrite. All right. Okay. The next point in this verse, it says, and so that Allah may test what is in your hearts. Honestly, I don't really understand this part. So, what is it saying? What does it mean? Exactly? He says that God made fighting and war obligatory for you and didn't grant you victory at Uhud to test your patience. Wow. And who says this? Al-Qurtubi says that's what it means. Alright, the last point. Why would God test what's in the hearts if he already knows what's in the hearts? I'm going to read you the last part of the verse, and I beg you to. I mean, you have the Qurans in front of you, or maybe you've got them open on your computers or something. We want to learn together to prepare by reading the next 10 verses before I talk about them. I mean, read them. Read the next 10 verses, please. Every time we say 10 verses, read the next 10 verses so you'll know what I'm talking about. Pay attention, it says, and so that Allah may test what is in your chests, and purify what is in your hearts. And Allah is all-knowing of what is within the chests. So why would he test what's in the chests if he already knows what's inside them? I mean, who is it that tests? I don't know, especially since ignorance is impossible for Allah. So, for Allah to test what is in your chests, even though he is all-knowing of what is within the chests. I mean, this needs a new perspective, a new reading. That's the point. Anyway, 155. Indeed, those of you who turned away, on the day the two armies met, it was only Satan who caused them to slip. Pay attention. Where did the polytheists and the Muslims meet? At Uhud? Exactly. Those who turned away on the day of Uhud. The ones who ran up the mountains and went back to the city. Satan led them astray. What does that mean? It means he tempted them. They had sins and he tempted them, telling them to run away. All right, good. Satan led them astray because of some of what they had done, but God has already forgiven them. God is forgiving and forbearing, just like that. Of course, there are 3 points in this verse. The first point, I need to hurry, because time is running out on us. Those who fled on the day of Uhud left only 13 people with the Prophet out of the 700, but they were 1,000. All right. Here's the thing, sir. Among those 13 were Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Talha, Abdur Rahman ibn Awf, and Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. They were part of those 13 people. So, when it says Satan led them astray, it means he tempted them because they already had previous sins. I mean, Satan led them astray. Sorry, I misspoke just now. Satan led them astray and tempted them. Meaning Satan misled them, and they already had previous sins, so they ran away, they fled. Who is saying this? Who is making this first point? That those who were with the Prophet were 13, including so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And he justified it for them, meaning the one who says this is al-Baghawi. Okay. The second point is that Uthman ibn Affan, the Prophet's son-in-law, the third caliph, and one of those promised paradise, fled on the day of Uhud. By the way, who is saying this? The one who says this is Al-Qurtubi. Okay. So here, honestly, is my question. We'll get to this story later on, but I'm just going to give you a little note about it now. So when we get to it at verse 166, right now we're at 135. So keep these two numbers in mind. Verse 135, which we're on now, and verse 166, which we'll come across next time. All right. So was their fleeing because of the devil's temptation, or was it by God's will? Because, my brother, verse 136 says that their fleeing was by God's will. Here it says their fleeing was due to the devil's temptation. And verse 166 says, again, that their fleeing was by God's will. And we'll explain this in detail, because it says, and whatever befell you on the day the two armies met, it was by God's will. That's the topic in verse 166. Here it says, look, it says, that those among you who turned away, on the day the two armies met, it was only the devil who caused them to slip. So here, what does that mean? I'll explain it in detail over there, in verse 166. But that was just a quick point. A quick point just to remind you, that's all. In verse 136, it says, O you who believe, do not be like those who disbelieved and said about their brothers, when they traveled through the land, or went out to fight, if they had been with us, they would not have died, or been killed, so that God may make that a regret in their hearts. God gives life and causes death, and God is all-seeing of what you do. The address here. This verse is directed at Abdullah ibn Ubay and his companions, okay? They were the ones who said to their group, or their brothers in disbelief, or those who went back with them when they were heading out as 1,000. Abdullah ibn Ubay took 300 and went back. The verse was revealed about him. He told him, no, we should fight. If you think about it, we should fight in Medina. We know its paths and can defeat anyone who comes. No problem. Someone said, no, let's go to Uhud. The Prophet went to Uhud with his companions and was defeated. Abdullah ibn Ubay went back with 300 and saved himself. So the verse is telling them, it's not about that. That the one who didn't participate in the battle, meaning if they were, what would the verse say? It says, if they had listened to us and hadn't gone to fight, they wouldn't have been killed. That's what they're saying about this verse. Abdullah ibn Ubay is saying this to his fellow disbeliever. Okay, but the verse is telling them, no, that's not true. And the proof is, go ahead and try to prevent death from yourself if you can. If you're a real man, even if you didn't go to the battle or anything, if you're meant to die, you'll die. That's the whole story, plain and simple. All right. So who's the one saying this? The verse was revealed about Abdullah ibn Ubay because he told the polytheists, if you go, you'll die. And indeed, they were killed, and so on. So who is saying this? The ones saying this are al-Baghawi, Ibn Kathir, and al-Tabari, the three of them. Alright, the second point. What's the real reason behind this? What's the wisdom in mentioning the word Allah 3 times in the verse? I mean, look back at the verse. I don't want to read it again because of time. That's basically it. But it's mentioned 3 times in the verse. Alright? 157. And if you are killed in the cause of Allah or die, then forgiveness from Allah and mercy are better than what they accumulate. What he wants to say is that no one is killed in the cause of Allah, and no one dies. Meaning, like someone traveling for work or migrating for a job and all those things. They only die when their appointed time comes. When their time is up, they die, whether it's during their travels for their livelihood or in a battle. They only die at their destined time. Don't think that just because someone participated in the fighting, that's why they were killed. No, it's just that his time was up. That's all. Who says this? Al-Sadi, Ibn Kathir, and Al-Tabari are the ones who say this. Then here, my question is, what does it say? And if you are killed in the cause of Allah or die. Okay, now let's look at the next part. 128 says, and if you die or are killed. So what's the point of switching the order? Killed or die, die or killed. I don't get it. Here it says, and if you die or are killed, to Allah you will be gathered. One time it says killed first and die second, and another time it says die first and killed second. So what's the point? Especially since the 2 verses come right after each other. Okay, the meaning of verse 158 is that you shouldn't flee from fighting in the way of Allah, because your return is to Him, to Allah. That's what Qurtubi and Tabari say is the real meaning. But I have a question about verse 158 too. Where does someone who is killed or dies end up? Does this really need to be explicitly stated? I mean, what it says, and if you die or are killed, to Allah you will be gathered. Where else would they go? Isn't that obvious? Now we're at verse 159, just one verse left. So by mercy from Allah, you were gentle with them. And if you had been harsh and hard-hearted, they would have dispersed from around you. So pardon them, ask forgiveness for them, and consult them in the matter. And when you have decided, then put your trust in Allah. Indeed, Allah loves those who trust in Him. The Prophet used to consult his companions about everything. For example, he consulted them. Just look at this. He consulted them about whether to fight inside Medina or to meet the enemy at Uhud. Of course, the majority told him, go to them at Uhud. Let's not fight inside Medina. Abdullah ibn Ubay told him no, and honestly, his opinion was correct. He said, let's face them here and finish them off here. So the Prophet listened to the others, took them, and went, and what happened. They were defeated, people were killed, he was wounded, and things like that. Alright, that was the day of Uhud. He also consulted them on the day of the trench, during the battle of the trench, about whether to make peace with the Confederates and all those groups by giving them a third of the fruits of Medina. But Sa'd ibn Mu'adh and Sa'd ibn Ubadah refused, so he agreed with him. Alright, so the Prophet did consult them, see? And he also consulted them on the day of Hudaybiyah about whether to fight the polytheists. But Abu Bakr told him no. He said, we didn't come here to fight people, to fight anyone. We only came here to perform Umrah, that's all. So he told him, alright, we'll just perform Umrah. So the Prophet was fine with that. 2. He also consulted Ali ibn Abi Talib about separating from his wife Aisha when the incident of the slander happened, and all that, and the one who's mentioning this. It's Al-Tabari, the one who's talking about all these consultations the Prophet did during the Battle of the Trench, and all of that, and Hudaybiyah, and so on. It's Al-Tabari who's saying this, right? So, what's the story behind? And consult them in the matter? That's verse 160. If God helps you, no one can overcome you. But if He forsakes you, who is there that can help you after Him? So let the believers put their trust in God. Here, if God grants you victory over your enemy, then no one can ever defeat you. That's what it means. And if He forsakes you, then there's absolutely no one who can help you. So put your trust in God. There's no one else but Him, right? Okay, who's saying this? Al-Bagawi. See you all next Friday. Goodbye.